Hey, y'all. Sexy's back with another excerpt of The Second Ring of Power. And today's excerpt is being brought to you with big appreciation and so much love for Mother Earth, for nature. I really enjoy sitting on my back porch and it faces all these trees, and maybe I'll be able to post like a little boop about it. And I'll just stare and sort of just gaze at the leaves and their intricate patterns and the uniqueness of each and every one, and then the sheer abundance, and reflecting on how nature has its struggles for sure, but what's innate is innate. It will develop. Intention really is key. And it's just a beautiful, spectacular world we live in. She provides us with so much. And I don't know if anyone else has noticed where I live on Earth, the sun has been hitting a little different these past 48 hours. Everything is still really lush and beautiful, but the colors have almost this muted tone to them. So there's this sort of yellow, muted yellow kind of glaze over everything. It's remarkable, just something to notice, interesting thing to notice. That's something I've found interesting that I've noticed, and I bring it here. Speaking of abundance, so I was thinking about nature because I would love to sit in other places. I enjoy the outdoors. I would love to read some excerpts from outside, outdoors. This is definitely my spot as far as inside the homestead here. This is a friendly reading spot for me. I enjoy it greatly. Shout out to the teachings of Don Juan and Carlos Castaneda, book one. This is a good spot. I've thought of doing other places in the apartment. Might still, but right now this works. But I would love to read outside. Now, here's the thing. Maybe y'all could help me out. Drop in the comments, por favor, if you have any natural remedies for skeeters. Oh my goodness, mosquitoes. They bite on me fervently, furiously, frequently. I've had little bug bites all over. Boop, 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 and play tic-tac-toe. Oh my goodness gracious. And I've tried a lot of things. I joke that they just consider most of it like seasoning. Oh snap. Hey, I got that citron, son. Hey, come get the citronella, Ella. Hey. Ooh, I like a little lavender spice. Witch hazel, yes please. Yeah, I mean, I'm not interested in DEET. That's harmful. That's bad. Okay. And I think the most aggressive thing that I've tried is Zevo, but that didn't do anything. I think the most peculiar thing I may have tried was it was an idea presented, and I was like, hey, why not? Was to consume the mosquitoes, catch them and eat them, and then maybe I'd build up a resiliency. Maybe they would recognize I'm a predator and leave me alone. I'm certain I did not consume enough for any of that to happen. I'm not really interested in consuming more, but I had a few, I guess, morsels. It didn't faze them. So yeah, maybe you can let me know something that works for you. Drop in the comments below. Yeah, love you, Mother Nature, but that abundance of those little vampiric parasites is no bueno for moi. But let's go ahead and get to this book. Oh yeah, that's something else. So I am intending to do new excerpt drops on the Tuesday. Yeah, me go on post on the Tuesday and on me Saturday. Yard. All right, before you get your panties in a bunch, my family is from the islands, so I'm not appropriating. I can do that. On second thought, my family is from the islands, and I probably should not do that. They'll laugh. They'll tease me about it. They'll think it was terrible. My That accent is terrible. In any case, let us go ahead and get back into the second ring of power. And you already know, part 3, the continuation. Again, there might be a part 4 at this rate. Patience is a virtue I can use a little more of. Learning. Thank you. Oh, I didn't finish that. The continuation, part 3, possibly 4 or more, of 1. The transformation of Doña Soledad. Ooh, okay. Let's have a sip. Let's have a little sippy. And let me also share, this is not tea today. This is coffee. And if I'm being 1,000, I prefer coffee. I am switching more towards decaf, but I like the taste of coffee. But in my head, I do think it's better to be a tea drinker. Coffee drinkers tend to be anxious. Tea drinkers have this air of peace. In any case, this is coffee. I'm gonna keep it 1,000. But either way, I appreciate a warm beverage. Cheers. Why did you make the floor red, Doña Soledad? That's my color. I am red, like red dirt. I got the red clay in the mountains round here. The Nahual told me where to look, and he also helped me carry it. And so did everyone else. They all helped me. How'd you fire the clay? The Nahual made me dig a pit. We filled it with firewood and then stacked up the clay slabs with flat pieces of rock in between them. I closed the pit with a lid of dirt and wire and set the wood on fire. It burned for days. How did you keep the slabs from warping? I didn't. The wind did that. The north wind that blew while the fire was on. The Nahual showed me how to dig the pit so it would face the north and the north wind. He also made me leave 4 holes for the north wind to blow into the pit. Then he made me leave 1 hole in the center of the lid to let the smoke out. The wind made the wood burn for days. After the pit was cold again, I opened it and began to polish and even out the slabs. It took me over a year to make enough slabs to finish my floor. How did you figure out the design? The wind taught me that. When I made my floor, the Nahual had already taught me not to resist the wind. He had showed me how to give in to my wind and let it guide me. It took him a long time to do that, years and years. I was a very difficult, silly old woman at first. He told me that himself, and he was right. But I learned very fast. Perhaps because I'm old and no longer have anything to lose. In the beginning, what made it even more difficult for me was the fear I had. The mere presence of the Nahual made me stutter and faint. The Nahual had the same effect on everyone else. It was his fate to be so fearsome. She stopped talking and stared at me. The Nahual is not human, she said. What makes you say that? The Nahual is a devil from who knows what time. Her statements chilled me. I felt my heart pounding. She certainly could not have found a better audience. I was intrigued to no end. I begged her to explain what she meant by that. His touch changed people, she said. You know that. He changed your body. In your case, you didn't even know that he was doing that. But he got into your old body. He put something in it. He did the same with me. He left something in me, and that something took over. Only a devil can do that. Now I am the north wind, and I fear nothing and no one. But before he changed me, I was a weak, ugly old woman who would faint at the mere mention of his name. Pablito, of course, was no help to me because he feared the Nahual more than death itself. One day, the Nahual and Gennaro came to the house when I was alone. I heard them by the door like prowling jaguars. I crossed myself. To me, they were 2 demons, but I came out to see what I could do for them. They were hungry, and I gladly fixed food for them. I had some thick bowls made out of gourd, and I gave each man a bowl of soup. The Nahual didn't seem to appreciate the food. He didn't want to eat food prepared by such a weak woman, and pretended to be clumsy and knocked the bowl off the table with a sweep of his arm. But the bowl, instead of turning over and spilling all over the floor, slid with the force of the Nahual's blow and fell on my foot without spilling a drop. The bowl actually landed on my foot and stayed there until I bent over and picked it up. I set it up on the table in front of him and told him that even though I was a weak woman and had always feared him, my food had good feelings. From that very moment, the Nahual changed toward me. The fact that the bowl of soup fell on my foot and didn't spill proved to him that power had pointed me out to him. I didn't know that at the time, and I thought that he changed toward me because he felt ashamed of having refused my food. I thought nothing of his change. I still was petrified and couldn't even look him in the eye. But he began to take more and more notice of me. He even brought me gifts, a shawl, a dress, a comb, and other things. That made me feel terrible. I was ashamed because I thought that he was a man looking for a woman. The Nahual had young girls. What would he want with an old woman like me? At first, I didn't want to wear or even consider looking at his gifts, but Pablito prevailed on me and I began to wear them. I also began to be even more afraid of him and didn't want to be alone with him. I knew that he was a devilish man. I knew what he had done to his woman. I felt compelled to interrupt her. I told her that I had never known of a woman in Don Juan's life. You know who I mean, she said. Believe me, Doña Soledad, I don't. Don't give me that. You know that I'm talking about La Gorda. The only La Gorda I knew of was Pablito's sister, an enormously fat girl nicknamed Gorda, Fatso. I had had the feeling, although no one ever talked about it, that she was not really Doña Soledad's daughter. I did not want to press her for any more information. I suddenly remembered that the fat girl had disappeared from the house and nobody could or dared to tell me what had happened to her. One day I was alone in the front of the house, Doña Soledad went on. I was combing my hair in the sun with the comb that the Nahual had given me. I didn't realize that he had arrived and was standing behind me. All of a sudden, I felt his hands grabbing me by the chin. I heard him say very softly that I shouldn't move because my neck might break. He twisted my head to the left, not all the way, but a bit. I became very frightened and screamed and tried to wriggle out of his grip, but he held my head firmly for a long time. When he let go of my chin, I fainted. I don't remember what happened then. When I woke up, I was lying on the ground, right here where I'm sitting now. The Nahual was gone. I was so ashamed that I didn't want to see anyone, especially La Gorda. For a long time, I even thought that the Nahual had never twisted my neck and I had had a nightmare. She stopped. I waited for an explanation of what had happened. She seemed distracted, pensive perhaps. What exactly happened, Doña Soledad? I asked, incapable of containing myself. Did he do something to you? Yes. He twisted my neck in order to change the direction of my eyes, she said and laughed loudly at my look of surprise. I mean, did he? Yes. He changed my direction, she went on, oblivious to my probes. He did that to you and to all the others. That's true. He did that to me. But why do you think he did that? He had to. And that is the most important thing to do. She was referring to a peculiar act that Don Juan had deemed absolutely necessary. I had never talked about it with anyone. In fact, I had almost forgotten about it. At the beginning of my apprenticeship, he once built 2 small fires in the mountains of northern Mexico. They were perhaps 20 feet apart. He made me stand another 20 feet away from them, holding my body, especially my head, in a most relaxed and natural position. He then made me face one fire, and coming from behind me, he twisted my neck to the left and aligned my eyes, but not my shoulders, with the other fire. He held my head in that position for hours, until the fire was extinguished. The new direction was the southeast. or rather, he had aligned the second fire in a southeasterly direction. I had understood the whole affair as one of Don Juan's inscrutable peculiarities, one of his nonsensical rights. The Nahual said that all of us throughout our lives develop one direction to look, she went on. That becomes the direction of the eyes, of the spirit. Through the years, that direction becomes overused and weak and unpleasant, and since we are bound to that particular direction, we become weak and unpleasant ourselves. The day the Nahual twisted my neck and held it until I fainted out of fear, he gave me a new direction. What direction did he give you? Why do you ask that? She said with unnecessary force. Do you think that perhaps the Nahual gave me a different direction? I can tell you the direction that he gave me, I said. Never mind, she snapped. He told me that himself. She seemed agitated. She changed position and lay on her stomach. My back hurt from writing. I asked her if I could sit on her floor and use the bed as a table. She stood up and handed me the folded bedspread to use as a cushion. What else did the Nahual do to you? I asked. After changing my direction, the Nahual really began to talk to me about power, she said, lying down again. He mentioned things in a casual way at first because he didn't know exactly what to do with me. One day, he took me for a short walking trip in the Sierras. Then another day, he took me on a bus to his homeland in the desert. Little by little, I became accustomed to going away with him. Did he ever give you power plants? He gave me mescalito, once when we were in the desert. But since I was an empty woman, mescalito refused me. I had a horrid encounter with him. It was then that the Nahual knew that he ought to acquaint me with the wind instead. That was, of course, after he got an omen. He had said over and over that day that although he was a sorcerer that had learned to see, if he didn't get an omen, he had no way of knowing which way to go. He had already waited for days for a certain indication about me, but power didn't want to give it. In desperation, I suppose, he introduced me to his guaje, and I saw mescalito. I interrupted her. Her use of the word guaje, gourd, was confusing to me. Examined in the context of what she was telling me, the word had no meaning. I thought that perhaps she was speaking metaphorically, or that gourd was a euphemism. What is a guaje, Doña Soledad? There was a look of surprise in her eyes. She paused before answering. Mescalito is the Nahual's guaje, she finally said. Her answer was even more confusing. I felt mortified by the fact that she really seemed concerned with making sense to me. When I asked her to explain further, she insisted that I knew everything myself. That was Don Juan's favorite stratagem to foil my probes. I said to her that Don Juan had told me that mescalito was a deity or force contained in the peyote buttons. To say that mescalito was his gourd made absolutely no sense. The Nahual can acquaint you with anything through his gourd, she said after a pause. That is the key to his power. Anyone can give you peyote, but only a sorcerer, through his gourd, can acquaint you with mescalito. She stopped talking and fixed her eyes on me. Her look was ferocious. Why do you have to make me repeat what you already know? She asked in an angry tone. I was completely taken aback by her sudden shift. A moment before, she had been almost sweet. Never mind my changes of mood, she said, smiling again. I'm the north wind. I'm very impatient. All my life, I never dared to speak my mind. Now I fear no one. I say what I feel. To meet with me, you have to be strong. She slid closer to me on her stomach. Well, the Nahual acquainted me with mescalito that came out of his gourd, she went on. But he couldn't guess what would happen to me. He expected something like your own meeting or Ligio's meeting with mescalito. In both cases, he was at a loss and let his gourd decide what to do next. With me, it was different. Mescalito told him never to bring me around. The Nahual and I left that place in a great hurry. We went north instead of coming home. We took a bus to go to Mexicali, but we got out in the middle of the desert. It was very late. The sun was setting behind the mountains. The Nahual wanted to cross the road and go south on foot. We were waiting for some speeding cars to go by when suddenly he tapped my shoulder and pointed toward the road ahead of us. I saw a spiral of dust. A gust of wind was raising dust on the side of the road. We watched it move toward us. The Nahual ran across the road and the wind enveloped me. It actually made me spin very gently and then it vanished. That was the omen the Nahual was waiting for. From then on, we went to the mountains or the desert for the purpose of seeking the wind. The wind didn't like me at first because I was my old self. So the Nahual endeavored to change me. He first made me build this room and this floor. Then he made me wear new clothes and sleep on a mattress instead of a straw mat. He made me wear shoes and have drawers full of clothes. He forced me to walk hundreds of miles and taught me to be quiet. I learned very fast. He also made me do strange things for no reason at all. One day, while we were in the mountains of his homeland, I listened to the wind for the first time. It came directly to my room. I was lying on top of a flat rock and the wind twirled around me. I had already seen it that day whirling around the bushes, but this time it came over me and stopped. It felt like a bird that had landed on my stomach. The Nahual had made me take off all my clothes. I was stark naked, but I was not cold because the wind was warming me up. Were you afraid, Doña Soledad? Afraid? I was petrified. The wind was alive. It licked me from my head to my toes, and then it got inside my whole body. I was like a balloon, and the wind came out of my ears and my mouth and all other parts I don't even want to mention. I thought I was going to die, and I would have run away had it not been that the Nahual helped me to the rock. He spoke to me in my ear and calmed me down. I lay quietly and let the wind do whatever it wanted with me. It was then that it told me what to do. What to do with what? With my life, my things, my room, my feelings? It was not clear at first. I thought it was me thinking. The Nahual said that all of us do that. When we are quiet, though, we realize that it is something else telling us things. Did you hear a voice? No. The wind moves inside the body of a woman. The Nahual says that that is so because women have wombs. Once it's inside the womb, the wind simply picks you up and tells you to do things. The more quiet and relaxed the woman is, the better the results. You may say that all of a sudden, the woman finds herself doing things that she has no idea how to do. From that day on, the wind came to me all the time. It spoke to me in my womb and told me everything I wanted to know. The Nahual saw from the beginning that I was the north wind. Other winds never spoke to me like that, although I had learned to distinguish them. How many kinds of winds are there? There are 4 winds, like there are 4 directions. That's, of course, for sorcerers and for whatever sorcerers do. 4 is a power number for them. The first wind is the breeze, the morning. It brings hope and brightness. It is the herald of the day. It comes and goes and gets into everything. Sometimes it is mild and unnoticeable. Other times it is nagging and bothersome. Another wind is the hard wind, either hot or cold or both. A midday wind, blasting full of energy, but also full of blindness. It breaks through doors and brings down walls. A sorcerer must be terribly strong to tackle the hard wind. Then there's the cold wind of the afternoon, sad and trying. A wind that would never leave you in peace. It will chill you and make you cry. The Nahual said that there is such depth to it, though, that it is more than worthwhile to seek it. And at last, there is the hot wind. It warms and protects and envelops everything. It is a night wind for sorcerers. Its power goes together with the darkness. Those are the 4 winds. They are also associated with the 4 directions. The breeze is the east, the cold wind is the west, the hot wind is the south, the hard wind is the north. The 4 winds also have personalities. The breeze is gay and sleek and shifty. The cold wind is moody and melancholy and always pensive. The hot wind is happy and abandoned and bouncy. The hard wind is energetic and commandeering and impatient. The Nahual told me that the four winds are women. That is why female warriors seek them. Winds and women are alike. That is also the reason why women are better than men. I would say that women learn faster if they cling to their specific wind. How can a woman know what her specific wind is? If the woman quiets down and is not talking to herself, her wind will pick her up, just like that. She made a gesture of grabbing. Does she have to lie naked? That helps, especially if she is shy. I was a fat old woman. I'd never taken off my clothes in my life. I slept in them, and when I took a bath, I always had my slip on. For me, to show my fat body to the wind was like dying. The Nahual knew that and played it for all it was worth. He knew of the friendship of women and the wind, but he introduced me to Mescalito because he was baffled by me. After turning my head that first terrible day, the Nahual found himself with me on his hands. He told me that he had no idea what to do with me. But one thing was for sure, he didn't want a fat old woman snooping around his world. The Nahual said that he felt about me the way he felt about you. Baffled. Both of us shouldn't be here. You're not an Indian, and I'm an old cow. We are both useless if you come right down to it. And look at us. Something must have happened. A woman, of course, is much more supple than a man. A woman changes very easily with the power of a sorcerer, especially with the power of a sorcerer like the Nahual. A male apprentice, according to the Nahual, is extremely difficult. For example, you yourself haven't changed as much as La Gorda, and she started her apprenticeship way after you did. A woman is softer and more gentle, and above all, a woman is like a gourd. She receives.